Hi, I'm Rafi. I'm at the Scan AI booth at GDC 24, and I'm joined by Craig Barr from the technical marketing engineering team here at NVIDIA. And Craig, this morning you shared with the crowd some really interesting use cases of generative AI in product design for various sectors. For those who weren't able to catch that, do you mind giving us a bit of a recap on what you talked about?
Sure. So what the discussion was primarily was generative AI in design as a generic kind of umbrella, but then diving down into the specifics of things like product design and also within the manufacturing area. So right into automotive. And the key takeaway, or what I felt was the most important takeaway for the people there, the viewers for that talk, was that generative AI is an expansion of your existing tool set. It's an incredibly powerful tool on its own, and it's opening up to all different areas of tools for the design workflow. You know, when generative AI first came out on this side of the image side of things, it kind of scared a lot of people, right? A lot of people were, wait a minute here, I'm supposed to put in a prompt of text and that's what I'm supposed to accept. And that's not the case at all, right? We have the ability to guide and direct generative AI to help us achieve the design we want. So whether that's using old school methods of by hand sketching, which is super important to put your design as you want it to be down, and to be training the generative AI application to help you along with the design. The great thing about generative AI within a design workflow is it's completely non-linear. At any time that we're working with this, we can come back and repeat what we've done. We can even retrain it with the images that we've just created to dial it in even further, right? And then we have a certain suite of tools within the generative AI aspect that really allow you to fine-tune specific areas, details of a design, maybe curvature or specific small curve areas on a vehicle as an example, even focusing in on small little stitching or areas within the interior, right? So we're really not trapped to this kind of shooting into a wide area of make a car for me. We can really dial into the specifics. But you know, the most important takeaway I think at the end of the day is good designers will always be good designers. This is another tool that they can take advantage of to help broaden that range of concepts. The last thing I'll say about it is there's a really interesting thing with generative AI in design that designers are seeing, and that's this idea of kind of, you know, opening up this view of a design, right? Like kind of changing maybe the perspective. So all of a sudden, things that maybe we wouldn't normally think of, we may get with generative AI that we can look at as a concept and incorporate that into our designs. And I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting designs in the years coming here for sure.
Yeah, and I think the in addition to the interesting designs, it's the interesting workflows that are emerging. A couple of things you mentioned just there that I want to unpick a little bit. Yes, the idea of typing in a prompt and getting an image is one workflow, but it doesn't mean that you only have to accept that, right?
Absolutely,
There's, as you said, image to image, there's sketch to image, and then some of your
photo to image, or even images you've already generated to use that to train it further.
Yeah, so you don't have to just accept the first response and only one way of generating imagery or generating the information you want. So as these things evolve, what are some of the problems that you see being solved as these technologies advance? You know, we saw in yesterday's keynote, Jensen talked about how this accelerated computing is really pushing forward the age of generative AI. You know, and the announcement that Shutterstock has been working with you on 3D, on generating 3D assets.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. You know, if you're at the keynote yesterday, Jensen made, you know, as usual, some incredible statements there. And one of the most amazing things here at NVIDIA is that slide that he put up there in regards to over the past 8 years to see our compute power go 1,000-fold, right? And that's incredible. And then when we get into the AI space and how important that is, right, to have this compute power to do what really allowing anyone, regardless of industry or whatever they're in, to do what it is they dream of or want to achieve. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways with this. We have the compute power. We're adding more compute power faster than ever before. And it's enabling and empowering everyone to be able to do just about anything. AI at the end of the day is an excellent assistant, right? So you brought up something interesting. with compute power, when we look back at ChatGPT, which wasn't too long ago when that first came out, and how shocking it was and amazing that was, and then of course generative AI image tools and how amazing that was, and they've come such a long way, right? At the beginning there were all these very obvious mistakes, and now it's getting really impressive, and we see things like with OpenAI, with Sora, some of the absolutely incredible things going on there with video and film.
Yeah.
But where it's all going now is this ability to blend or break out into different media pieces, right? So one of the areas that we have is this Project Picasso here at NVIDIA. We have an area within generative AI that we call Edify, and we're showing that here on the floor. And what the beautiful thing about this is that we kind of combine all of these different ways to work, right? So we're using generative AI at the end of the day to create a beautiful image, but we have full control over the composition of that image. We're actually generating 3D objects that we can take and compose a scene and have control over moving those, placing those, scaling them, whatever it may be, adjusting the material or however they want to look. But then from there, building that photoreal scene based off how we've moved other objects.
In the scene.
One of the demos that we're showing on the floor, it's an excellent example of like a digital photo shoot. So we're using Edify to take a bunch of different objects, and we have a beautiful watch that we're able to recompose the scene live, move the camera, relight the scene, change the background environment, change everything around it, and completely change the mood or the theme of the lighting on that on the fly, so that we produce these amazing high-resolution, beautiful, stunning imagery of a product. And it's different in that traditional photo shoot in the way that you have full control over absolutely everything.
And you can change it after the fact, right? You're there, you can do multiple versions of it. You can make use of OpenUSD's variants feature, so you can swap out labels, swap out bottle types if that's the kind of product you're doing. Different lighting conditions for targeted use cases, and it's photoreal, as you say, and it's very versatile. And the asset management, that's the other thing about this generative AI going into the Omniverse platform, is that it's really good at asset management, which is one of the core features of OpenUSD.
Yeah, and I think you hit a key term there, this idea of variance, right, or being iterative. This idea of generative AI is excellent at that. Putting out, you can start with a simple prompt of something, right, a shoe or whatever it may be, and start putting out all these different concepts, and then dialing in towards your vision and feeding in actual sketches and designs, but having all these different iterations, right? And then you take that through to a development platform like Omniverse, where it's all about iterations and variations as well. It's a pretty powerful, infinite development
and environment. So Jensen mentioned multimodal training, if I've got that term correctly. And the way I understood it is, I guess a single modal training would be you're trained on just text or trained on just bitmap images. So does multimodal mean that you can have large language models that can combine 3D mesh data with image data and text data and video rendered data and triangulate or combine them in some way to create new generative systems? Is that how it works?
That's exactly it. So, back to Edify, one of the demos we have on the show floor here, that's exactly what that's showing, is a multimodal generative AI workflow. In that we're not just working with text, and we're not just working with 2D imagery, we're working with 3D objects. We can have, as you mentioned, video. We could work with video. But the great thing about this is you're not stuck to just that one, media format or whatever that piece is. Now you're combining all of these different things. And that really is endless there when we can start to have, real world aspect added to putting a virtual 3D object on a real world object that we're using within this generative AI construction of things, with 2D imagery, with text prompting, with video, with whatever, right? That is the idea of this kind of unrestrained or unconfined ability to create with just about anything.
With just about anything. Do you know, at Scan AI, they're hardware specialists, but they're also advisors on the software side of things, and an Omniverse representative in Europe and the UK. Hardware is obviously critical to this, as is the software infrastructure. With the advancements in cloud AI, that also being part of what Scan combine in their sort of services, what do you think the right approach should be if someone's just getting into using generative AI for their organization, their system, assuming they've been around, for a little while? They're not startups, they're not in the AI space, but they want to make use of this stuff. What would be your sort of top tips for approaching this, the multimodal data sets? How should they go about harnessing the data they already have into a system that works for them? What are some of the best practices of using cloud or local GPU and so on?
So I think one of the first areas to start, and I'm going back a little bit here on what I said at the beginning, I think is this idea to keep an open mind, right? And embrace it as an additional tool in your toolbox. The beauty of the way things are going with generative AI, especially this multimodal aspect of things, is that we can open this up and do anything we want with it, right? We're not confined to anything. But at the end of the day, as I said, good design will win out, right? And it's like what we see with generative AI in the video and film space. A good story still has to win out. We can have beautiful imagery, but if the story
otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly, right? So this is where it's an extension of already creative people to do that. So I think the start there is keep that open mind and have that foundation of understanding that this is a tool set. It's not push a button and accept what it's giving you. You're in control of that and you can change that. So that would be for anything with generative AI, cloud or on a local, high-end configured workstation, or it's a big data center type of workflow, is to have that understanding of how it works. And I was just going to say, keeping abreast of what's out there, that's tough now, right? Every week there's something new.
And it's hard to know which one's a great tech demo and which one's an actual compelling use case and a solution for pain points in the industry.
Yeah, but I think it's if generative AI, especially this multimodal, this idea of using all different aspects about this, I think it's good to keep up to speed as best as you can. And this is by far the craziest time we've seen in tech history, right?
Yeah.
Things are changing incredibly fast. New applications, I was going to say by the week, but it's by the day, if not by the hour right now, and going in all different directions. This idea of prompting text to 3D and generating a fully textured, material covered asset, that usable asset in 3D. That's impressive stuff.
Yeah.
But keeping abreast of what's going on out there, and that, as tough as that is, but having a general idea of what we mean by generative AI, and that's a pretty broad term, right?
Yeah.
But also what we mean by multimodal, and just keeping up on those terms and some of the interesting demos that are out there, which there's new ones every day right now, right?
Yeah, and you've really explained multimodal to me now. The way I would look at it now is it's kind of like you are what you eat. So if you're a generative AI system and you've got a balanced diet of 3D, text, video, images, you're going to be all the healthier for it.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Craig. It's been really insightful. And thank you for checking out this talk with Craig. I've certainly learned a lot. And if you want to know more about generative AI solutions, both hardware and software infrastructure, certainly Omniverse powered, then check out the Scan AI team, check out the links in the description of this video, and just keep up to date with our coverage of GTC 24. Thanks again, Craig.
All right, thank you.